I'm excited to have this conversation today with Josh. Josh is a former MLB pitcher. He was drafted by the LA Dodgers in the second round, 2008. Had his debut in 2011. And I mean, and when I think about baseball in general, man, the things that you guys have to go through, just the minor leagues, just getting there, to get your shot in the big leagues, it's pretty impressive, the patience and the composure you guys, you have to get there. But anyway, you go on and you have a good career in the MLB. You go over and you play in Korea. You kind of reinvent yourself over there, and then you get to a place where it's like, all right, like we all do in sports, and start trying to figure out what is that life like? What does life look like after football? And you retire in 2023. You go back, you earn your bachelor's in biblical studies. I mean, you're just a man with many talents here. And so now you're a husband, a father, you're in your new career, and we're excited to dive into it, get to know more about you. Josh, welcome to the Intangible Podcast. This podcast is all about the intangibles that makes you who you are, and just looking at your resume and the things that you've done in your life. Really excited to dive in so people get to know a different side of Josh.
Yeah, this is excited. I've watched it from afar, and it's going to be fun to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Well, again, I keep thinking about this, the role as a pitcher, the role of, you're the only man on the mound standing there, sitting there by yourself, and, all eyes on you. The pressure, the composure you have to do that job. I can't even imagine, where it's just one person. At least in football, someone else, you can blame it on someone else when you mess up. But it's just you out there on the mound. And so, but before we jump into that, I want to kind of go back to your childhood and just kind of talk about where you grew up, Lafayette, Indiana, and just take us through, those things that really built this foundation for you to be that guy on the mound.
Yeah. I love that you ask about like the origin of this. I remember when I was probably fifth or sixth grade, my dad started taking me over to Purdue University with a strength coach there by the name of Jim Lathrop, and started working out. And that was like the heyday of Purdue football. Drew Brees, Matt Light, all those guys were there. And being able to watch those guys from afar prepare and get ready for what they wanted to accomplish was like really instilled in me like this work ethic. I remember there's a story. I might have been a little older, 6th or 7th grade, and Drew is in there early. He might not even remember this. They were getting ready to do 7-on-7. Receivers were late, and Drew's like, "Hey, I need to warm up. Will you catch me?" And so here I am, this like 7-year-old kid. Like I've got my number 15 jersey on in my backyard. Usually I'm throwing balls up and catching them, and here I am now catching Drew's warm-up passes. And I just remember my hands hurt so bad.
I was about to say,
catching these balls. Oh, they hurt so 7? Bad. Yeah. And so
did he take it easy on you? Was he whipping it in there?
He was, a little 7th grader coming here trying to catch these slants and in routes.
That's awesome.
But I would say that time in my life was like foundational, and like you said, like the intangibles of like just catching what other catching what other guys were doing, seeing their work ethic, seeing Drew's leadership, seeing all of those guys how they went about their business. As I look back now, like just how influential that was on me.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I can't imagine, like, probably at 7 years old, you had to go home and get in a cold tub just because your hands, your chest is beat up from the ball. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah. Well, growing up, did you have, siblings that you had to compete with that also showed you, a different way, or were you the oldest child? What was home life like?
Yeah, I have a younger sister. She's 6 or 7 years younger than me. So it was my dad and I. I remember my dad lying about my age to get me into camps and have me play up levels. So like he always surrounded me with people older than me. So like call them like big brothers or whatever it might be. But I don't remember playing with kids my age that often. I was always playing up. I remember going to Purdue baseball camp when I was in middle school, and he lied about my age and said I was a freshman in high school. And so I'm over on Purdue's camp on the field with the high school kids playing.
You must have been pretty tall. Early.
I was big, so he could get away with it a little bit, but no one was asking back then when you just had to fill it out on paper. Yeah. Now everything's electronic, so it's a little bit harder to lie about your age.
Well, you got to show that, you have to show all of your credentials now. You got to show a passport, birth certificate, social security card.
Yeah, and you better have it when you go to baseball tournaments with your 10-year-old kid, 11-year-old, and he's big. Everyone's gonna be asking for it. Exactly.
So you got an early jump, unlike, and that's the other part about baseball is different than football is that, you guys start kind of like hockey too, where it's you 5 and 6 years old, and this is what you eat, breathe, sleep, baseball. And so was there any point before you got to high school that you were starting to burn out from it? Or was it like, this is, just this something that I really excited about doing every single day?
Yeah, I would say no. I like you said, eat, sleep, breathe. Like I loved waking up and going to a field, or waking up and, I remember setting the couch cushions up and rolling up socks and throwing socks into the couch cushions. It was like one of those things, obsession might be a good word. Like I was obsessed with playing baseball. All I wanted to do was get better after school. It's all I thought about. And so I never felt that burnout. But there was just so much joy that I had playing the game. That even carried throughout my career, even later, where it was like I knew that I was kind of supposed to be playing baseball. Yeah. So even on those hard days, that fueled me. And then, like you mentioned earlier, the teammate aspect of it, like being able to come alongside of guys that are on the same journey towards a common goal, was it really lights you up on a daily basis.
3, 2, 1. Parents, the recruiting process is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever face for your child. And talent isn't enough. Coaches are looking for the intangibles, like composure, coachability, communication, and leadership. And that's what Team Q measures. Get clear insights into your child's intangibles so they stand out when it matters most. Go to teamq.io and help your athlete unlock greatness.
You start out at the University of Tennessee. You start out here, and then you go back to Purdue. And I want to know the origin story. How did Purdue let you out of the state?
Yeah, that's actually a funny story. I remember calling the coach. I had a good relationship with him at the time, and I was like, "Hey, I want to come on a visit." And he was kind of taken aback. He's like, "Why would you even want to come to Purdue?" I'm like, "Man, it's my hometown." And so, it was hard, growing up as a kid, all you hear about is SEC baseball. Even now, everyone wants to go to the SEC. I always wanted to play against the best. Yeah. And challenge myself. And so I remember, I was in high school. I think I was a sophomore in high school, and I pitched a game at the University of Tennessee. And I remember getting done, and I was like, I'm going to go to college here. I loved the city. I loved the stadium. And I did. And so, it was just early on. I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to go to Tennessee. So.
I will tell you, Tennessee, it does have that special place where it'll suck you in quickly. Yeah. I remember going on my official visit there and had no intentions of committing to Tennessee. And I walked out of there, and I walk into the car, and my mom was like, "So what'd you think?" I was like, "Well, I just committed."
I remember my visit. So that my sophomore year, obviously pitched. Then I go on my official visit, and it was UT Florida. Oh, and man. It was the UT Florida game when UT kicked a last-second field goal to beat them in Knoxville. And if you're in Knoxville with 100-some thousand people and you beat Florida, how can you go anywhere else? Nothing is going to compare to that. Nothing.
That place, it gets hopping, man. And it's easy. It's easy to say, all right, I'm in, I'm good. Yep. The lights are bright, yes. The fans are just unbelievable fans. So, So that's awesome. So you start your career there in Tennessee, and then you make your way back to Purdue. What in that journey, from a transitional standpoint, what did that teach you about character, resilience, and and why make that transition?
I would say the one lesson, and I actually have this written down on a little exercise that I do. So the lesson that I learned in that is that hard decisions require hard conversations. And I remember, I loved my teammates. I loved the University of Tennessee. But it was hard to have that conversation with Coach Delmonico about coming back home just from a developmental standpoint. Yeah. It was the first time that I had really dealt with failure in my career. You come in, you're a freshman starting on the weekend against the best players in the country, and being able to handle failure, I learned a lot there. But in that is like, how do you keep persevering? Like even when it's not going your way, even when you're failing, how do you keep moving forward and not stay stagnant? And so, it was really opportunity for me to come back and pitch. So it was a hard decision, hard conversation with the coaches, but still have some great friends from University of Tennessee.
Yeah. Well, you said that, from a development standpoint, it is what you were looking at, that transition back, and where was your focus on it? What part of your game were you focusing on that you knew needed to develop a little bit more?
Yeah. Consistency, just the consistency and the routine. In high school, you can just roll the balls out and play. Yeah. If you're bigger, if you're faster, if you're stronger, that just plays. You don't really have to prepare.
Right.
So what I needed consistency and preparation. I needed more of a routine to trust, we hear in sports all the time, trust the process. I didn't have a process. It was go out, throw pitches, and see what happens. So having the freedom to develop my own routine, to develop my own process, like I said, and this gets set up, like we were talking earlier, on me being going in there to Purdue when I was in the 6th and 7th grade. So I had an unbelievable relationship with the strength coaches there.
Right.
And so these guys were like my dads, a second dad for me, where it was I could go in, I could talk to them, we could experiment, we could try new things. And so it just gave me freedom when I went back to Purdue to kind of try some different stuff and really dial in what that routine and process looked like.
And what became your process? What became that thing that you were able to hang your hat on day in, day out, and you knew how to tweak, parts of your game because you had that routine?
Yeah. The preparation was dialed in. I just trusted, I always think about working backwards. So what's the goal? And then how do we get there?
Right.
So my day, or my life for a long time was lived in 5-day cycles, where I pitched was day 0. Day 1, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Check the box. Day 2, day 3, day 4, and then day 5 again was go out and pitch. And so it was just really monotonous. You've played with great players before. Is the amazing thing when you play with great players is that they don't do anything really different than anybody else.
Right.
That's a conversation we have as athletes. Is oh my gosh, playing with Roy Halladay. It's what did Roy Halladay do? What did Clayton Kershaw do? It's their attention to detail. They did the same 10 reps. They did 10 reps just like everybody else, but their 10 reps were hyper focused and they were locked in. And so it was how do you take this focus to another level? Because everyone has the same amount of time. Everyone has access to the same resources. So there's got to be some differentiator here. And for me, it was just the focus.
Yeah. And did you find any failure in that process and the things that you had to learn from and weed out? And how did you handle that failure?
Yeah. So I kind of reframed failure a little bit.
I like it.
So I always say win or learn. There is no failing if you're winning or learning.
Right.
And so for me, it was prepare, compete, adjust. And so I knew my preparation. I would go out, I would trust that preparation and competition. And then I would take a very, very like objective look at my performance. What do I need to do to get better? Where was I good? And how can I lean into that more? And then it was just, then I would adjust after the game, and then my preparation would adjust based on what I needed to do. And so it was like, I had like this small lane or this small view, and then this big picture view where I knew what I was trying to do at all times. And I could always adjust on the fly, alter this, change that to lead me into the next game and opponent.
Yeah, that's awesome. And through that preparation, you start to really figure out who you were, and now you're in a position where you're looking up at draft day. Take me through, give me some stories from your draft day, that draft day process. You end up getting drafted by the Dodgers. How was that for you?
Yeah, honestly, I had no idea the Dodgers were even going to draft me, which is, and you're having me pull in the archives here. That was a long time ago. What I remember about that was sitting around, and I remember I was on the phone with the Boston Red Sox. I was in Boston the week before for a workout. I'm on the phone with the Red Sox, and they say, hey, we're going to take you with our next pick. And it was Dodgers and then Red Sox, I think, were the next pick. So like as I'm on the phone with the scout, Dodgers, I hear my name. Back then it was radio. I think it was radio. So I get this draft ID number. And so like I hear my name over the radio, and I'm like, hey, thanks for wanting to take me, but I'm a Dodger now. Good luck. So yeah, but I have my family around. There's a place here in Lafayette or West Lafayette called Bruno's. It's where, Orlando is a great friend of mine, pizza place, and all my family's there. Anything that's like been important in my life, we've done there.
Right.
So my family's there. We're celebrating. Just a really, really cool moment. You work towards something, but that was really, like you said, it's the beginning of the journey. Like it's just the start of it. Like you get an opportunity. It's like, great, you got drafted, but really it's just an opportunity to go play and try to actually achieve your dream. So
yeah, that's fun now, because again, like with football, it's you know what you're getting into. You get drafted, and now you're straight in, going in to compete for a job to show up on a Sunday. Unlike baseball, it's like you get drafted and. Do you go straight to the big leagues, or do you, what level do you start at? And so take me through your journey. I'm always fascinated by this part of the journey to get to the big leagues. It's
like, it's shell shock when you first get drafted, because you almost take a step backwards, because it's like you're playing in Division I facilities. You've got access to Division I resources. You walk in. You're flying on a plane. And then it's like 12-hour bus rides to middle of nowhere towns. And
does these buses have beds? Or is it you have lay down beds, or is it just like straight?
Not when I was there. It was like we had some guys that would fit up in, I don't even know how they did it, like in the overhead compartment. Some of the skinnier guys, I'm not too skinny, but they'd like wedge themselves up in the upper part. Then you'd have guys laying on the floor. You'd have guys across so it's not glamorous by any means. But looking back, like some of my best memories were on those like long late night bus rides with your teammates, and then showing up when the sun's coming up. You get a couple hour nap, go eat lunch, and go right to the field and play. So the minor leagues are not very glamorous, especially at the lower levels.
Man, I can imagine like the shock that I would be in to go from SEC locker rooms and having trainers giving you everything you need, and coaches having all the tools that you need to, now showing up and you're on a bus.
Yeah, and you got there's a couple loaves of Wonder Bread and some peanut butter sitting on the table, and like that's lunch.
Yeah, but you're loving it. You're loving life, and your goal is still to get to the big dance. Now, throughout your career, you on you kind of get on a roller coaster. Bounce around to a couple of teams. How did you handle that mentally? How was your mental game? What was that process like for you?
Not good. It was I think. The hardest thing, honestly, was not knowing how to deal with the emotions. And I joke around and I say this, but I do think there's some truth to it. I always say I played for so many teams that I don't know if everybody wanted me or nobody wanted me. And when I was going through it, I didn't realize it, but every time that I got traded or that I moved a team, I was trying to earn approval. I was trying to earn my value and worth to make, to make them know that they made the right decision by choosing me.
Right.
Man, it is like, and when you're caught on that hamster wheel of like this performance-based identity, like it is hard to wake up every morning and feel like the weight of the world is on your shoulders to have to go perform. And there's not much freedom in that. There's not much joy in that. And I say this like looking back now on my career that like I wish I would have known what I was going through and how to deal with that. Right. Because I think there's so many guys that are still playing that are trying to earn approval by what they do or what they produce. And just the freedom that comes when like you know who you are, you know your value and your worth is secure regardless of how you perform on a field. And that you are more than just a uniform with a number. That actually frees you up to play better, because then you just go out like we were talking earlier, like when you're a little kid, like, and all you're worried about is what color popsicle you're going to get after the game. It's a game. Like obviously there's more riding on it when you're a professional, but like you want to be able to go perform with freedom and joy.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly love that thought process, because that's what we talk about and preach about all the time. That's why this is important to talk about this, because we get to now in this state that we are in now, we get to look at it from hindsight and man, I wish I would have known this about myself, or I wish I would have known how to handle this better. And that's what we call is now you're kind of start to look at it and how do we blend mental toughness and mental performance. And that mental performance piece, teaching you early on how do I thrive in life versus like, I just got every day I wake up, I feel like I'm walking through mud, but I'm resilient, I'm tough, I'm going to get through it. But how do I unload that stress and that pressure so that I can then go out and perform at a high level, knowing what my center is. And so, so I can't imagine like, bouncing around from different teams, having that weight to go and to perform just to prove yourself to a coach or GM that, hey, I belong. So did you along that journey, along that path, were you able to find some stability there? Were you able to find, more yourself so that you can, play freely?
Yeah, definitely. And that was just like the deep work that you have to do, and asking yourself like honest questions and being like very, very objective with what's going on. Why am I playing this game? How does my performance affect just my overall mood? I remember I always say that the best thing that happened to me was when I had kids when I was playing, because when I got home, they were the only people in the world that did not care how I did on the field.
Not one bit.
Not one bit. Until my son was 5 and I got home after a game and he asked me why I didn't pitch very good. And then that got thrown out the window.
You can no longer watch my game, son.
You can't watch my games. And so, I think that we don't ask ourselves hard enough questions when we're in the game to understand like the motive behind this. Yeah. The motive behind our play, the motive behind, why do I feel the way that I feel? One of the cool things, one of the greatest things about being a human being is that we're the only thing on earth that can think about its thinking. And so it's like, I can actually think about the way that I'm thinking about things and how that affects when I walk onto a field. And so like this truly is just like it's a battle of the mind. And you mentioned mental toughness and mental resilience. I think resilience is probably like a better word to use that, because like toughness is like there's a wall in front of me and like I'm gonna run through this thing no matter what. Resilience and sport, as you know, is like resilience is about bending but not breaking.
Right.
Because the sport and this life is gonna bend you to a point where you feel like you're gonna break. How do I not do that?
Right.
How do I keep moving forward?
Right. Well, and that's why I say the conversation needs to be had, to continue to be had. That when you talk to a lot of athletes, they know how to associate mental toughness. They know how to if there's a wall, I'm going to run through that wall. But it's the other piece that we're now starting to try to get our arms wrapped around is that mental performance. You call it mental resilience.
Yeah.
Is how do I have the toughness to work through it, the resilience to get through it, the grit, but also how do I have the tools in my toolbox to help me manage my stress, manage my maybe some negative thoughts I've having, manage the outside pressure, and those are tools that kind of help you build that mental performance, that mental resilience, so you don't break.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, there's the things that happen to us in the game or in life, like we can't control those.
Right.
And those things, the things that happen to us don't make us, they reveal us. And so, but what we can control, like you're saying, is we can control how we're thinking about the things that happen to us, and then what we start to believe about those things. And when that happens, that affects our actions.
Right.
And so it's like, just a quick example is like, I get traded. I feel like I've got to earn my worth. So then I work harder and harder and harder, and maybe I don't perform. So now I think that hard work doesn't equal success. And it really doesn't. Like, hard work doesn't always equal success. It gives you the opportunity to succeed. Right. But like, you can just start to see how like my thinking affects everything. And so that resilience and that grit is like we said earlier, like it's a battle in your mind. Every single day you show up, how am I going to think about what's going on and what happened to me?
Yeah, and that battle, I'm thinking about now as I start to think about your career again here is that you make a move to Korea, and so you've been kind of building a foundation to handle transitions because you've made some moves around the league, and now you go into an ultimate transition, and you make that transition over to Korea, and what was the what was your composure like to, while you were adapting to a new culture and new language and, and leveling the pressure of how do you, take everything you've learned and then come over here and then be able to thrive, being that you're in a completely different environment.
This is going to sound super simplistic, but I could not read or understand what anybody was saying about me. Like, seriously. Like, I mean, you think
that makes
about,
sense. It makes sense. The Twitter, the Instagram, man.
I mean, that was honestly the biggest unlock for me was that, hey, somebody wrote a newspaper article about me. The only thing that I saw was my picture. I couldn't read it. I had no idea what it said. They could have been bashing me the whole time. I didn't know. Even on Twitter, on Instagram, like all the captions were written in Korean. Couldn't understand, you're watching like their version of Baseball Tonight or Sports Center. I couldn't understand what they were saying. And so when I think about like the voices that we allow in our lives, like that is so important because those things are just reinforcing whether I need to perform in order to be loved, to perform for my value and my worth. Like, it sounds dumb, but I really think that if athletes could eliminate some of the voices in their lives, their performance would get better.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, when you're looking at the outside world and you especially now in this generation where, where we have so much technology and we post a picture and how many likes that we get. And when that start to kind of become part of your identity, it can start to, swirl some bad thoughts in your head. And so the fact that you couldn't read it totally makes a lot of sense, which kind of leads me to the next question around this is that you go on and you become the MVP of the league. Do you think that, not being able to see what people were saying about you was that thing that helped unlock the mindset that you needed to perform at that level?
Yeah, I definitely think it was a piece of it. And then, when I went to Korea, I had the freedom to really discover who I was. You mentioned identity, like to discover who I was as a player. Like what did Josh do well? Not what did an organization tell Josh that he did well. I think one of the biggest like travesties in sport is like when we when we throw a comparison on somebody is like, Josh is going to be like, whatever, throw a pitcher's name out. Like that's who we think this guy's going to be when he gets bigger and develops. And then you spend your whole life like trying to be this guy and you don't even ever discover who you are as a pitcher. And so I had the freedom to kind of see what I did well and then just do that over and over and over again. And I always tell guys this, what I'm talking to when I went to Asia and after, my last probably year and a half, so my last 45 starts or so, I felt like I started the same game 45 times. And that was just because like I knew who I was, I knew what I was going to do, and I just went out and I did it. And then I adjusted when I needed to, but like I wasn't going to get out. I wasn't going to not be me because that was the best that I could do, not trying to be somebody else. And so that gave me the freedom to like test new stuff. What do I do well? What maybe do I not do as well? And so just go pitch that way.
Yeah, no, I mean, I love it. This is what I love about these things because the journey is never stops, and you're constantly, and that's why I love the infinity symbol because as humans, we're constantly evolving day in and day out, and through those challenging times, you were still able to make a transition and still be able to focus on, find a way to focus on you and your growth and how do you become the best version of yourself. And so, I'm sure you think that that journey, that opportunity to go over to career, I'm sure you think that, you think about that and you say, I'm very grateful that I had that opportunity to really grow and learn who I was.
Yeah. As much as I loved being able to achieve a dream of, pitching in the big leagues, people asked me what my favorite memory about my career was. And it was like being in Korea. Like my family and I had some of the best memories together. It was the closest that we were. Korea is the size of Mississippi. Like you can take a bullet train in 2.5 hours and be from the top of the country to the bottom of the country. I could take a cab home after away games that were 45 minutes away. So we just got to spend so much time together as a family. Our kids went to school there. Like it was just a really, really awesome time of my career and like our lives together.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Josh, we're going to do a quick 2-minute here. I like to do a 2-minute before. It's kind of like going into halftime here. And it's just some rapid fire questions that I'm going to throw out to you.
All
right. You ready for this? All right. Give me your favorite ballpark you ever pitched in.
Dodger Stadium.
All right. Toughest hitter you ever faced.
Corey Hart. I know it random, but Corey Hart. He was like 6'7", felt like he couldn't throw the ball anywhere and hit it.
Big old, yeah, I'm sure you had a big strike zone there, huh?
Yeah, it's huge.
Best teammate you ever had?
Best teammate. Oh man. Do I have to pick one? This is hard.
No. I mean, I would.
I'll go like my Mount Rushmore here. Juan Pierre, AJ Ellis, Jamie Wright. We'll go with those three. Those three guys meant a lot to me in my career.
All right. And I'm sure they showed up in different ways for you.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. One that I'm curious about, what is the biggest difference between MLB and KBO fans?
The KBO fans are a lot louder and they sing all the time.
Can you sing one of the songs that they sing?
No, not right now, not live.
All right. One superstitions you had before game.
Man, it was just routine. I don't know if it was maybe it was superstition. I always did the same thing. I always did it like a cold plunge contrast to wake me up. I took a nap on the day that I pitched. It was just my routine that I had.
Superstition.
Yeah, superstition. Yeah. There you go. We call it.
All right. A couple more here. Favorite leadership book that you've read?
Oh, no, you're killing me here. Kuz and Posner, The Leadership Challenge is probably just like a classic, one of the best books on leadership.
I'm trying to think if I've read that one. No, but I'm putting it on my list.
All right, there you go.
Thank you for that. All right, last one for you. One word to describe your pitching style.
Competitive.
competitive. All right. I love it. All right. We're going to jump back in. I got, a couple more questions here for you. Now, doing some research on you and the fact that you've gone to biblical college, your faith is very strong. You're very big into your faith. How did that add to your growth in baseball and your family life?
Yeah. I think it's the foundation of everything that I do. Currently now I work with a pro athlete ministry called Pro Athletes Outreach. So I'm our director of engagement. I serve all the sports, and basically what I say is I make sure that during the season, every player has a person or a place that they can be connected to. And so I would say that, what Jesus has done for me is the foundation of everything that I do. And it's the place that I'm able to play and perform from. I think so many people, I always use this house analogy, but nobody builds a house by building the roof and then setting it on the ground and then going and building everything else and then trying to set the roof on top.
Right.
But that's what I see a lot with athletes, especially at young ages now that my kids are young and I'm coaching them, is like, we want to go buy cabinets before the foundation's even dug. And so it's like, what are you building your career and your life on that is not going to shift with performance? Mm-hmm. That's not going to shift with how I feel about how I performed or how it affects me or how failure affects me. Like, there's got to be some constant in your life. And for me, that was what Jesus did for me on the cross.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm in this leadership mindset and being that that's what you're doing now. You're leading and developing young men. And, at what point did you realize, your purpose was shifting from throwing fastballs to developing people?
It was my last couple of years playing, really. There was a shift where, I was playing more of like a supportive role on the field. Like the days that I performed, like it was my day, but like I just saw this shift even in like some of our relationships with my teammates, where I remember vividly when we would go on the road, like everybody knew, because I was finishing my master's degree at the time. Everybody knew that Josh was going to be at the closest coffee shop. And so, I'd be there about 7 a.m. Yep, there you go. I haven't had mine yet today. I need it. You're drinking it. And I'm jealous.
I needed it. I was like, I got to get one before we start here.
But everybody knew that I was going to be there. And so, so about 9:30, guys would start rolling in. And I'd sit with them for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and then like the next guy would roll in. And so like there was just this shift, like guys started talking to me about stuff away from the field.
Right.
Because all that stuff outside the white lines, you carry it inside, it makes it hard to perform.
Absolutely.
And so that shift there was just like, man, I love competing. I love to go out and beat whoever is standing across from me. But there's something more going on here that like I need to like lean into, because I think I'm making a bigger impact, like you just said, not throwing fastballs, but coming alongside my teammates and helping them work through some of the things that I needed to know when I was their age.
Right.
And help set them up and build a foundation so they can perform for the rest of their careers.
Right. Well, through your lens, of you being in different locker rooms and being in the career that you're in now, what does leadership look like now compared to when it looked like in the locker room?
I think what I would say is intentionality. And so now that I'm not in a locker room anymore, I have to be very intentional with reaching out to guys. Mm-hmm. And, this is something that I need to do a better job of, that I'm always challenging myself, because when the season's going on, man, it's like that, even though you're in a locker room, that can get lonely. Yeah. Hotel rooms at night get lonely, apartments get lonely. And so it's like, how am I more intentional, because I don't have access to these guys 24/7 and I'm reaching out to them. checking in on them. Hey, how you doing? What's going on? Talk to me.
Right.
So just, I would say intentionality is like what leadership looks like now for me.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, when you look at, your career and you look at how, a lot of, as you said, some of your identity was wrapped up around how you perform. And, as you're leading these young athletes now and you're, having these conversations, how are you helping young athletes find their identity, beyond their performance?
Yeah, so like kind of just real quick, like the framework that I walk them through is there's three big questions that you have to ask. So what story are these guys living? And by story, I mean, how are they finding their value or worth? And so there's three primary stories that people live is, I am what I do or what I produce. I am what I have, or I am what other people say about me. Mm-hmm. So working through that first question is important because we need to figure out what story we're living. Because the story, I tell guys all the time, like there's a 5-year-old little boy inside of you that all they want to do is make their dad or their coach or their mom or their grandparent proud. Like
Started somewhere.
And then the second question that I asked them is, okay, what identity is getting elevated?
Right.
When you look at identity, a lot of us want to think it's like this singular thing, but it's not. It's like a diamond. Like you look at it from a different angle and it's different. So like I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a friend, I'm a son, I work, my job title now. And so it's like all of these identities are all competing for top spot. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is that I got to ask myself, what identity gets elevated? Because if that the wrong identity gets elevated, and it lives in the wrong story, now I don't feel safe because I feel like I'm grasping and trying to hold on to this and I can lose it at any time. And so like if the athlete identity gets elevated, which we know that it does, mm-hmm. and it's living in the story that I am what I produce, when I don't produce, man, when you walk into that locker room, this, like you don't feel safe.
Yeah.
You're like, your head's on a swivel and you're like, when's the GM coming around? When's the assistant GM coming around? Like, when am I going to get a tap on the shoulder from my positions coach to go see, coach? Like that's the way that you feel. Yeah. Bring your playbook. Like that's what it feels like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so working through those two questions are really important. And the last one, this goes back to, we talked about Korea a little bit, is whose voice is the loudest. And so who is reinforcing, who am I surrounding myself with that's reinforcing either the wrong story or the right story, or the wrong identity or the right identity. And so all of these things are playing at any given time. And what that does too, as a player, it opens up my perspective, because when you realize that like when coach gets on you, well, coach's reaction is because of this very framework.
Right.
So when you don't perform, guess what? He feels threatened because what he's had to do is he hands over, I am what I produce, over to the player. Right. And that's not safe. So like, then it's like when a coach freaks out on you or gets mad at you, it's like, oh, he might be upset with me. Yeah. But that's really coming from a place probably where he feels threatened right now, because if I don't perform, he loses his job.
Right.
And so in an organization, like all of this is going on. And so it's walking through these questions, like on a consistent basis and just knowing like where you're at.
Right. And again, I think a lot of that comes down to, again, being that self-awareness of who you are, because you also, as you're starting to work through that process, thinking about, this is where the coach is coming from, so I don't take it personal. Mm-hmm. But you also got to remind yourself not to take on that and put that pressure on yourself, because you can only show up and do your best.
Yeah. Yeah. And what underlies this, and I tell athletes this all the time, is like, sometimes this gets lost a little bit. I'm like, look, performance matters. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't just want you to feel good about yourself. Like, because of what we do for a living, like if I feel good about myself, but I don't perform, that's still a piece to this puzzle. It doesn't matter.
Exactly.
And so like, but you can't, what I tell guys is like, you can't create performance. what you can do is you can create an environment in which good performance can happen. And I think that these 3 questions for me and the guys that I work with, like, this helps them create that environment where they can perform well.
Yeah. And it sounds like, the questions that you developed was the same questions that you started to ask yourself as you start to make that transition out of sports. Yep. And so when you think about it, what was the hardest part for you to have to learn in making that transition out of sports?
Yeah. And this has just been kind of like over the last probably like 3 to 6 months. When I got done playing, I was like, man, I'm going to figure this thing out. Like, I got a bachelor's degree, I got a master's degree. I'm like as ready as anybody could ever be to tackle this transition out of the game. And so what happened was that, like, man, I had never built a business before. I had no idea what it was like to network. And so why would I think that I could do this on my own? And it was actually, I was looking back and I was like, man, like when I played, if I needed a nutritionist, if I needed a strength coach, if I needed a skills coach, like I went out and got that because they knew how to do that better than I did.
Right.
And so when I look at this next piece, is like, it's humbling to realize, like, I don't know anything about any of this stuff.
Very humbling.
Of leaving the game, but there are people out there that do. Like, there are people that I can go to and ask for help, and they will help me figure this out. And then what that does too is it expedited my learning. And I'm still learning about how to do all this stuff too, but like, you don't have to go through it on your own to figure these things out.
Yeah, it's a transition is interesting, man. Especially for, guys who feel like they have everything they need. They have all the tools in their toolbox to really go and be successful. And then you still find yourself, spinning, just trying to, trying to figure it out. What do I do here? I don't, I have everything. And it is a very humbling experience. But it's also one that it kind of takes you back to, it's been an athlete, it's sports, hey, I was at one point, I was the man in high school and I had to go from hero to zero. And then at one point I was the man in college and then I had to go get to the pros. And now I went from hero to zero. And so, we've been equipped to start over and do it well. And so, in life, when we get into real life, we don't think that same thing is going to happen, but it does.
Yeah. You make an awesome point there where it's like, okay, so if we look back at our careers, like from 5 years old to 30 years old, that's 25 years it took me to get to where I needed to be.
Right.
Why in the world would I think that I'd have this figured out in a year or 6 months after I get done playing the game? Like, that's just not even feasible to think. Right. And so you're hitting the nail on the head with that.
Yeah. And it's just the way our brain's built and designed to not look back. We have a hard time looking back and seeing those things. And then once you kind of get to a point where it forces you to look back, and then you realize like, oh, all right. Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm just going to keep doing some work on myself. I'm going to keep leaning into my support, and then we're going to keep growing.
I think there's a quote, I think it was Soren Kierkegaard, philosopher. He said, life can only be lived forward, but only understood backwards. And so that reflection of looking back, what are the lessons that I learned? What are the core values that have been instilled in me throughout my career, my life? And then how do I live from those to help me make decisions?
The identity piece of who I am, it took me a very long time to get to a point where I am secure and safe in who I am as an individual. And so, which is why I like to have these conversations, because I feel like if I would have learned some of these pieces earlier in my life, then I would have made some better decisions or made some transition a little bit easier for myself. And again, it doesn't negate some of the challenges you go through transitions, but it definitely gives you a foundation of pieces where you can go back to and lean into and dip into the pond when you need to, so you can get through those challenging times. Yeah. And so as humans, we're constantly evolving and growing, man. So I really appreciate your story around that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just mentioned it too. And like, this is a never ending process. Like it's an everyday battle to wake up and know that like, hey, I got to keep moving forward. Same as when we played. Like I have bad days, I have good days, I have horrible days, I have great days. But it's like, what's the next best thing that I can do? Like, and how do I show up every single day and do that?
Yeah, but you got to have a starting point. So
yeah.
Well, as we start to wrap up here, I got a couple more questions for you. One question I have for you is, I know baseball, you guys got some really, funny characters that you guys play with. What was one of your favorite, stories that you can share online here about your baseball career? It could be with a teammate, a player, it could be about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, like I always think of like rookie dress up. Can't do it anymore. Rookie dress up's good though. We're in probably where we were at. We're in San Diego, and we are flying to Arizona, and so I'm in this like sexy ladybug costume, and got.
Oh, you're not talking about suits, or you?
No. Last trip of the year, like so all the rookies have to dress up. We all have Halloween costumes. We go to Arizona, and I think we're in Scottsdale, and get off the plane, go to this yogurt place, and they're like, all the veteran guys are like, hey, go get us yogurt. So we go in, we start ordering. Next thing we know, we turn around, the bus is gone. We're walking. We've got to walk like a half mile back to the hotel in all of our Halloween costumes with way too much frozen yogurt that we'll never be able to eat in our entire lives. So that was always a fun story.
Oh man, that's awesome. Well, hopefully you have a picture of that because
there is one floating around online of me walking around downtown San Diego in this ladybug outfit.
Hey, we gotta find it. AJ, we gotta find that picture.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. All right. One of my last questions I have for you is, when you think about your career, think about your life, think about where you are right now, what are those intangibles that makes Josh who he is today?
Yeah. Man, this is a deep question. Why are you waiting so long on this one?
Hey, it's a wrap up, baby. We've been building here.
Yeah. I think you mentioned it early on. I think the perseverance, just problems are meant to be solved. And it's like, rather than viewing those as like stopping points or setbacks, is like, my mind is always like, okay, we got a problem. How are we going to solve this?
Right.
How are we going to fix this? How do we persevere through whatever it is we're going through and just outlast everybody else?
Yeah.
Because I know that there's so many people that I saw that just like, you stop too soon.
Yeah.
But if you just would have kept going, you'd have figured it out. So I'd say perseverance.
Yeah. Well, Josh, man, your story of leadership and, is not built on stats. It's not built on, titles. It's built on the composure, the resilience, the perseverance that you've had to go through your life, man. And I really appreciate you sharing your story. This has been a, fun conversation. Yeah. It's a pleasure to meet you. And look forward to staying in touch with you, man. So I really appreciate you joining the Intangible Podcast.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I appreciate it, Chris.
Yeah, absolutely.